Welcome to the Chronicles, told by the Chronikle. Cases of the missing, murdered, and unsolved. I'd like to thank everyone for watching today, and don't forget to head over to thecertifiedroracle.com where you'll find source information for today's episode. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss a case. Let's get started with Chronicle number 9, the Nancy Lee Eagleson case. The year was 1960. Hair trends were far out, with beehives, flipped bobs, and the new pixie cut. Every woman and young lady were rushing to their salons to get these looks. Groovy music was taking over the sound waves, with Kathy's Clown, Itsy Bitsy Yellow Polka Dot Bikini, and Teen Angel. Meanwhile, Gilligan's Island, Car 54, and The Andy Griffith Show were mainstream television. Fashion was making some statements. As a lady, you were either digging the high heels and dresses of the time called shifts, or you were wearing your go-go boots and your short mini-skirts. Making its grand debut that year on the shelves of stores were liquid paper. Now mistakes were an easy fix, and Sharpies were changing how we viewed markers and pens. Bubble wrap would revolutionize the way packages were shipped, and zip codes would also be made in this year. Now it was easier than ever to send a letter to someone. For one family, they would not be able to get excited about all the fun new items gracing the shelves of stores. They were on a mission to find their 14-year-old daughter who went to the movies with her little sister and was taken away from her family forever on their walk home. Nancy Lee Eagleson was born on July 3, 1946, to Donald and Betty Eagleson. Nancy was the eldest of 2 children at the time. She had a sister named Cheryl and would have a sister who was born years later that she never got the chance to meet, named Meryl. They would reside in Paulding, Ohio, a small community of about 2,500 people, very rural and very secluded. It was only a 20-minute drive to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and by 1960 Nancy was a freshman at Paulding High School. She was a good student with lots of friends. She was very friendly and outgoing. Nancy was the type of girl everyone had something kind to say about. Sunday, November 30th, 1960 started out like any other day. Nancy had awoken, and that day she had talked her mom into buying her a new pair of high-heeled shoes. Nancy was very happy and excited about this. Once she had the new shoes, the family headed off for Sunday service at their local church, where Nancy helped out in the nursery. Both Nancy and her little sister were excited to go and see a matinee later in the day. It was a double feature. It should be noted that the only movie articles state that they for sure went to see was David and Bathsheba. Their mom had even told them on the way home they could stop at Johnson's restaurant and grab a Coke before heading back. Everything was shaping up to be a great day for the sisters. Betty was cooking pork chops and hominy after church. It was one of Nancy's favorite meals. After arriving home and having a meal with her family, her dad retired to the living room to relax after a morning of church and good food, while Nancy stayed in the kitchen and talked with her mom for a bit before heading to her room to write letters to her pen pals. Sometime later, Nancy and Cheryl would head out the door. Nancy in her new high heels and Cheryl by her side would take off walking to the theater to enjoy the show. Betty allowed the girls to walk as it was only a few blocks from their home, and they lived in a safe area, or so they thought. After watching a double feature, the sisters walked to the restaurant and enjoyed a refreshing Coca-Cola. Around 7:20 p.m., they would start the short walk home that would change their lives forever. A short distance into the walk, a car passed them. The girls did not pay much attention to this vehicle, as they walked most places and were used to cars passing them. They had no worries until they crossed over Flat Rock Creek, when a second car came rolling up, this time slowing onto the girls. The car eventually came to a stop. At this point, Nancy looked over at the driver, and he said something, but Nancy couldn't hear. She took a fateful step off the sidewalk to get closer to the stopped car. The man inside asked if the girls wanted a ride. Nancy would tell him no thank you, and within the blink of an eye the man grabbed Nancy and pulled her in his car and sped off, leaving young Cheryl terrified. The girls were only 5 houses away from their home when Nancy was taken. Cheryl ran to John, the neighbor's house. John knew the girls well and sometimes would watch them while their parents were out. Cheryl was screaming the whole way there. She screamed to John that a man in a big car took Nancy. John immediately phoned the sheriff. Cheryl would tell police a big man in a big light-colored car with glasses had taken her sister. This was not much to go on, but police started searching and setting up roadblocks. The search for Nancy would not take long at all. 5.5 hours later, Nancy's body was found. At 2:30 in the morning, 8 miles away in a heavily wooded area, Joseph, age 38, and Kenneth, age 43, who were out raccoon hunting, came across something in the woods that early morning. At first they thought it was a Halloween costume someone had discarded, but they quickly realized it was a body of a young woman. The men left and got the police. Nancy was found 100 feet from the road with all articles of clothing on except her panties, which had been taken off and thrown to the side. Once the monster raped her, he then shot her in the head with a small caliber weapon, likely a .38. Police believe that she had been killed within a half hour of being taken. Nancy's body was laid over a pile of fall leaves, and there was no sign of tire tracks or footprints in the area. It had appeared that there was no attempt to hide her body. This is more than likely due to the fact that whoever had killed her there thought she would not be found for a long time. This was a very rural area, and police believe the person who killed Nancy had knowledge of this location. Nancy's case was not given much attention by the media. The only witness was a 5-year-old child who had told police and family all she could remember, as she was traumatized from what happened. It has been said in articles Cheryl did undergo hypnosis to try and remember more details from that night. No articles would state what became of the hypnosis. Police would say that this was a strictly sexually motivated crime. The whole community was in disbelief. How had this happened to a kind and loving young lady? Schoolmates of Nancy's were devastated and were asking the teachers who had done this to their friend, but neither teacher nor the police would have that answer. From the outside, it looked like the small police force was doing all they could to find who took the young life. However, some of the townsfolk had their doubts. Shortly after Nancy was found, almost all of her evidence would go missing. The sheriff's office saying it must have been misplaced and it'll turn up. The fact that so soon after she went missing, evidence came up missing was a bit odd. Everyone in the family and town thought so as well. Police would begin rounding up every known person in the area that had committed a sexually based crime. They would question and give several polygraphs. The sheriff would state he had a long list of suspects and a list of 30 people who had been ruled out. Rumors were spreading like wildfire in the town. One Paulding business owner would come to the police and ask to be questioned and polygraphed so he could clear his name and get people to stop spreading rumors about him. The police did just this, and he would be cleared of any involvement. To the public it was clear there was no suspect in Nancy's case, and most have stated they feel like the sheriff was involved in a cover-up of some kind. Most of the townspeople said they had an idea of who did this to Nancy. They just did not know why it had happened. The sheriff, John Keeler, would call Chicago police and compare notes on a murder that occurred one day before Nancy was killed, and 230 miles away. It was that of a 9-year-old girl named Gloria. The cases were found to be similar, but John Keeler would say they had too many differences as well to be connected. How was it possible the sheriff found out so quickly about the Chicago case? With all of today's technology, it seems to take forever to have different agencies compare cases. Yet John found out about this case quickly and inquired about it. Many people in the area, including the family, found this odd. There are 3 theories on who killed Nancy that night. They are as follows. Theory number 1. Nancy was killed by someone traveling through the area, and it was a crime of opportunity. Theory number 2. A local had killed Nancy. This was thought because of the location her body was found. Police and citizens believed it to be too remote for someone without knowledge of the area to know about. And theory number 3. People of the town believe Nancy's killer is someone very close to the case. Many believe a deputy sheriff raped and shot Nancy, and John Keeler is covering it up. Nancy's sister Merrill has said the town believes the sheriff did it. Nancy had worked on John Keeler's campaign, and the sheriff knew her well. Was it the sheriff who committed this brutal crime against Nancy, or was he just covering for one of his young deputies? Some blogs and articles that are not confirmed by the police have some interesting information on them. Once again, the information in the blogs that the next information comes from has not been proven factual. However, it should still be told, as there is always some truth to everything. One such blog of a man who seems to live or have lived in the area wrote that John Keeler said he knew who had killed Nancy. He just did not have enough evidence to make an arrest, despite the fact that his own deputy fit the description and drove a similar car described by Cheryl that night. This man also wrote that one of John's deputies was driving a car that was parked on the side of a road one day with a deputy in it. The man noticed it had new seat covers. He told the deputy he liked the new seat covers he had put on. The deputy immediately told him he had to go, only moving his car a block up the road, and continued to stay in the car. Why was this deputy not looked into? Was it possible the seat covers were to hide evidence of some kind? Nancy's case was cold until 2013, when the old Paulding jail was bought by Jeff and Kathy. They had hopes of renovating the building and turning it into an overnight paranormal investigation business. This is when some of the lost evidence from 53 years ago would be unearthed. While workers were tearing down walls in the basement, an area that no one knew was there was found. Located behind a wall and then behind a vent was a narrow stone pathway, and when crews started to level the ground, they spotted a black high-heel shoe, a piece of fabric, and a license plate. Crews notified the owners, who would let police know of the discovery. Police would contact Nancy's family and ask Betty to describe the shoe Nancy was wearing on the day she was found. Betty would describe the exact shoe that was found in the old jail. Betty and other family members would contact the owners and set up a meeting so Betty could formally identify the shoe. When they arrived, Betty once again described the high heels her daughter had on that night. The high heel, as there was just one, was brought out in a clear Ziploc bag, and it was indeed Nancy's shoe. Why had it been hidden for so long, and who was the person to hide it? Was the sheriff really protecting one of his own? If so, why? The shoe was taken to forensics, but they were unable to collect DNA off of it, as it had been so many years. Nancy's family wants justice for her. Someone close to the case was involved. All in the community and family feel this is so. Betty would pass away in 2018 without knowing who took her daughter's life. Nancy has relatives alive today, including Merrill, the sister she never got to meet, who hopes in her lifetime the killer will be held accountable. If you have any information in this case, please call the Paulding County Sheriff's Office at 419-399-3791. Once again, that's the Paulding County Sheriff's Office at 419-399-3791. I'd like to thank everyone for watching again, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you want more content like this, and so you never miss a case. As always, this is the Chronikle signing off.